Day 2 brings us Christian and Pagan Christmas. Ligeia, take us away.
Yes. Well, we've cleared the question. When is Christmas? We can't really say when is Christmas. So, next stupid question: what is Christmas?
Oh, were you looking for an answer from me? I believe at least to my understanding, mainly as a child, it's the birth of Christ Day, right? And that's like a whole celebration behind that.
Yes, exactly. So that would be the Christian side of it, but it also coincides with some heathen lore, because it's also the time of the winter solstice, or Yule, as it is called in the North Germanic areas. And then we have a couple. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I was just saying that's why we have Yuletide, right?
Right. And there's even some more. So we have some Mediterranean stuff coming up. For example, Roman Saturnalia. And we have St. Nicholas. So St. Nicholas is not the guy who shows up on December 24th. We will have St. Nicholas this week in a different video, because his day is at the beginning of December. And I thought that may surprise some people who are used to Santa being the main figure of Christmas.
Mm-hmm. But that's why we're here to educate and to blow minds.
Right. Right. So I've already sent you the picture with baby Jesus. And I think most people are going to know that. I don't think we need to repeat the Christmas story because it's an advent calendar. So people watching it probably know the background story. What they may not know is the whole story with the winter solstice and Yule and Saturnalia. So let's go into that. And we'll start with Roman Saturnalia. What do you know about that? Have you heard of it?
No.
No. It's related to the god Saturn.
I do know of the god Saturn, but I don't know of Saturnalia.
So, the god Saturn has a different name in Greek, and it's Kronos. And what does that remind you of?
It reminds us of the video that we talked about with the terrible Titan times of eating his own kids.
Yes, that's the same one. Very good. But let me write it a little differently. So when I put a CH in place of the K, you may recognize that word from English.
It makes me think of I think there's a different god of time, isn't there?
Oh no, it's the same. They have another one that is called Janus, and that is an Etruscan god, like January.
Yeah.
And Janus is the one with the two faces, so one facing into the next year and one facing back into the old year.
Right.
And he's actually the god of thresholds. So that used to be a door god. Kronos is the Greek version. Saturn then became the Roman version of that, and he's actually a god of time. That's why he's related to Saturnalia, because the time's running out for the old year. And maybe you know that the Romans didn't celebrate the New Year in winter, but they celebrated it in March.
Was it more for like the beginning of spring and everything?
Yes, so they cut off the year at a point where it was very cold and unpleasant, and they started the new year when the plants would regrow.
I could see some logic with that, for sure.
Yeah, so it's very close to nature coming back alive. So the Saturnalia were a celebration in the depth of winter when everyone needed to have some fun. Again, you remember we spoke about the rough nights, where people really needed good food and entertainment and everything to not become depressed, and to get through this extremely dark time. So that is the same for Saturnalia. And Saturnalia is a festival where people dress up, and also wear costumes. So we've kind of broken that up in our modern world. We've put some of it into Halloween and some of it into Carnival. And for you in the Anglosphere, it will be more like Halloween. So Halloween is a Celtic festival, but it also got a share of the Saturnalia, and that is dressing up as different characters and, for example, pretending to be someone else. This whole costume drama, that is something that is related to Saturnalia. And on the other side, in the next year, we have Carnival in some countries. And in Carnival, they also dress up. So Carnival and Halloween are quite similar in that regard, that you wear costumes and pretend to be someone else. And both comes from the Saturnalia. And let me show you some stuff. So there we have some costumes. And as you can tell, you can pretend to be a different nationality, or you can pretend to be an authority figure when you're really not. Or you can pretend that you're sushi. I love these Japanese costumes.
Food. Oh my god. It's all different definition of snack.
And well, this comes very close to what the Romans did. Not sushi. They didn't know sushi. But dressing up as a princess, for example. So during the Saturnalia, they would switch roles. And the masters would take the roles of their servants or even their slaves. And the slaves and servants would take the roles of masters. So they would dress up as the opposite, and the masters would actually serve their servants.
Wow.
So it was a time where everything... Well, you don't even have an employer, so you're your own boss.
I am my own employer. That's true.
Yes, but for them, of course, that was very cool. So everyone who talks about Rome and how horrible it was because there were so many poor people and so many slaves in Rome, well, once a year you got the opportunity to be a senator and to have grapes given to you by your servants, who are really your boss and his wife, and to be pampered by them.
Well, that's the part of it that that's quite interesting.
Yes. And that is where the tradition comes from for Halloween and for Carnival in different cultures, to dress as someone completely different. And a lot of people take the opportunity to become something that they would like to be or that they find fascinating, as you can see with all the hoe costumes on Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes. So that is a Saturnalia thing. You're not mocking other cultures and you're not mocking other sexes, because some even dress up as a different sex. You're trying to become someone else. You're trying to walk in someone else's shoes. And I think that is a really good idea, to try out a different identity just for this short period and try to understand how someone feels who is not you, who is very different from you.
That's right. That's right. It's just fun, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a cheeky tidbit, since we're on this topic. If people want to see some of my older Halloween costume dress-ups, let me know. I might put them in the Discord.
Absolutely, yes. Talking about Carnival, there is an English version of this. Yeah. What can you tell us about Shrovetide?
Nothing. I've never heard of this.
Really? So this happens before the Lent in England, and it's your last opportunity before the Lent, so before the 40 days before Easter, where you can be very active and even a little bit over the top, and where you can feast and be a little bit wild, because for the Lent you need to be very muted, and you need to hold back during the Lent. So before the time of contemplation starts, you have one last chance to play football, in this case, or soccer, as they say in the United States, in an ice-cold river.
You said Shrove, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just misunderstood you. I do know of Shrove, but I didn't know the full details behind it.
Okay. Yes, it's similar to Yuletide, Shrovetide.
I see. I never heard it called Shrove Tide. I knew of Shrove. Usually, sometimes it was like Shrove Tuesday, for example.
Yes, I think it's only 2 days. This Lent celebration is also something that happens in other countries. So usually when you see Carnival, it can be a celebration before the main Lent of the year starts. And the Orthodox have more than one Lent a year. So, but this one is the big Lent for them, the Lent before Easter. This is what it looks like in Russia and some other Slavic countries, and it's called the Butter Week.
The Butter Week.
In Russian, that would be Maslenitsa. And the most common dish is the pancake. It's not even butter, it's pancakes for the Butter Week. So for 1 week, you celebrate and you're really loud and you're really active and you can do everything that you can't do during the Lent. And you only eat pancakes for 1 week.
Wow.
And as you can see, there is some red caviar and sour cream.
Yeah, really going for it, aren't they?
Yes. And they do something similar to people in Western Europe celebrating Carnival. At the end of the week, they set the personification of Carnival on fire. They kill the Carnival or they burn the Carnival. And that is related to celebrations that have this topic of dark versus light, and of ancient deities. So usually you have seasonal deities in these heathen faiths, and it's usually 4. So you have one for each season. But in neo-paganism, they've reduced this to 2. And I'll show you the guys. In neo-paganism, in Wicca, for example, you have the Oak King and the Holly King. And the Holly King looks a little bit like Santa, and he represents the dark and cold of winter. And the Oak King represents summer. And in these ancient faiths, like in actual heathen faiths, you needed to kill off the king of the season to continue with the next season. So these celebrations during Maslenitsa and during European Carnival, for example, they're an echo of that past, of this dark versus light fight in nature. And you're killing off the Spring King during Carnival.
Right, I see. But I'm guessing even though you're killing them off, obviously they come back as seasons do, right? Right. So it's just like you said, a personification representation of them. I get it.
Yes, I mean nowadays it's that you set like a giant doll on fire, but when you go back to actual heathen times before Christianity, those were times of human sacrifice.
Yeah, it's a good thing we moved past that.
This can also happen to girls. So sometimes girls were chosen as the queen of the season. It was usually men, but you also have the queen thing, for example. So what happened was that you had a spring king or a spring queen, and they symbolized the return of fertility to nature. So those were usually younger people, not children, but young adults. And they would be king or queen for a full year because, nature needs their fertility energy. And even when the summer king appears, then the summer king is not as powerful as the spring king. And after that year, the spring king or spring queen has to die because their blood needs to fertilize the soil. Yeah. Good that we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, might have been a little too far.
Yes. So I'll show you some more. You may recognize this guy here because he's taken directly from the Christmas Carol.
Yes. He's one of the
So
ghosts.
right, that is the Ghost of Christmas Present, and he's very clearly also the Holly King. So the reason why you deck the halls with holly is that there is a Holly King.
I see. I didn't. Yeah,
Um,
never knew that.
Christmas is a winter celebration, but it is also a celebration of the returning light. And that's why I showed you these seasonal deities, and that's why I showed you Carnival, because this is all related to dark versus light. You have some rather demonic-looking costumes there. And this is both from Germany, and it's from the southwestern corner of Germany, closer to Switzerland. And there they actually celebrate this Heathen Carnival and not the Lent Carnival. So this has something to do with driving the winter out, basically scaring the winter demons so much that they don't come back.
I see.
Because you need a demon to get rid of a demon.
Yeah, there's some logic there. Demons don't like messing with other demons.
They also have celebrations where the May King or the Spring King is killed, so that is also part of the carnival. But of course, carnival is not the same as Christmas. It just shows this eternal fight between dark and light.
Mm-hmm.
So that can look rather spooky. If you don't know what you're running into, maybe avoid Germany during that time. In Austria, they actually have the Day of the Bell Ringers, and that is a bit closer to Christmas. That is in January. So they celebrate this in midwinter, and it's not carnival. It's very much related to Christmas. They have Christmas demons running around, and they have the defenders of the light running around. And it all comes to an epic showdown on a frozen lake between the demons and the defenders. And we will look into this a little bit closer to Christmas itself. And that will be part of the Christmas horror videos that we're doing at the end of the month.
Fantastic.
In mind the Day of the Bell Ringers in January. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into this. I have pictures, but I'm only going to show you in the horror video. So what we will look at now is Yule. So the blue stuff are North Germanic languages, and the green and yellow stuff are West Germanic languages.
Right.
So Yule is a thing of the North. This means Germanic culture is very, very similar, and we've already talked about this when I told you that Odin is called Woden in West Germanic languages, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Exactly. So even the gods can have different names, and it's a little bit like between Greek and Roman. So the North Germanic languages, they also have a North Germanic culture behind them, and the culture is a little bit different, but the foundation of the culture in North Germanic and West Germanic languages is the same. And they tweak some things so they fit better with the environment because, you know, people always strive to adapt to their environment. So there are simply things that you can do in the Alps that you cannot do in Wales, for example, or that you cannot do in northern Norway. So it depends on the region. And Yule is such a regional thing that the people in the North Germanic areas do. Let me show you some Yule traditions, and I think you will recognize some of them because the British mainland and Ireland were under attack by Vikings for a very long time, and Vikings come from this blue area. So you can even tell by the DNA nowadays that on the British mainland, this was mainly Danish Vikings, And in Ireland, they had some more trouble with the Norwegians. So there is more Norwegian DNA in Ireland than in England. And of course, they also left their Yule traditions. Have you eaten a Yule log?
I've eaten a chocolate Yule log, yes.
Yeah. Yes, that's what I meant, because there are two. There is one actually made of wood, and there is one that you can eat.
Yeah, I was about to say, people don't eat the wood one. The chocolate one is just a representation of it. Yeah.
That would be unusual. And I mean, most people now don't have these large fireplaces. So the wooden Yule log, of course, was a thing when you have these huge fireplaces that Santa could come through. So usually you don't find them in modern English flats.
No.
So what you can see here is that Yule is also related to fire and to light, because it's that same topic of dark versus light. And then, of course, you have some things like the holly and the pine and mistletoes. So a lot of that appears in English Christmas traditions, for example. You're trying to make light in the dark. That's why the candles represent the winter sun, for example. And you're trying to help the winter sun a little bit because it's quite weak during that time. And then, of course, you have food representations of these symbols. So you can have a food representation of the tree, for example. You can make tree-shaped cookies or something like that. And the chocolate log, as you said, this is all related to the light coming back and life coming back. And there we have a connection to Jesus Christ, because as far as I've heard, he also came back to life. Not on Christmas, but later.
Yeah, the superstition behind it was like it was closer to Easter time.
That is what Easter is about. But nevertheless, he is a divine being that dies and comes back to life. And that is pretty much what people celebrated in Yule. Nature dying and then coming back to life. So that is already something that they would expect from a deity to represent that. Not necessarily from a Christmas deity, but it's good when that deity is related somehow to Christmas. And I have a very nice Yule log here for you. They don't make them like that anymore.
Oh, I bet they don't. God, that would take ages to burn.
I think that's AI. I mean, look at it.
It probably is. It probably is. It don't look real.
Right. So let's get a smaller one. That would be a good Yule log. And in areas that celebrate with a Yule log, people spend some time to find the perfect one. So you're actually out in nature and you're searching for the perfect Yule log. Because we'll see later in our video about Christmas magic that this is also a time where you think that you can tell the future from certain events. So it's a magical time. And we see that with certain foods, like, for example, with a Christmas pudding with a penny in it, that you use this to kind of do an oracle for yourself or your family. So you are trying to take advantage of the Christmas magic, and depending on how well the Yule log burns, that will of course tell how well your year will be going. So you need to find a good one.
Absolutely.
Scandinavians usually have Yule fires. They make a big fire to keep away the darkness. And there's also some AI, so I'd say we'll take the first one with the crazy Viking with his axe.
That's quite cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the one AI thing even has the Christmas tree in it.
Yeah.
Right, so that is a more North Germanic tradition. As far as I know, there's not that much of it in England or other West Germanic areas, but that is more a Viking thing. Proper fireplace in the Anglosphere would look more like that. another feature of Yule is the goat. And I think we've already shared a link with the viewers.
Most likely. Oh, yes. Yes, we would have, but we would have at this point.
Cut that out.
It took my brain a moment.
So we will talk about the Yule goat. We will talk about some other Yule stuff because there are more Yule deities. So that is all coming up in the next weeks, where we will talk about the non-Christian traditions. But you should know that winter solstice and Yule and Saturnalia are very big parts of modern Christmas traditions. So this is all related to previous heathen religions and of festivals that celebrate that the light is coming back, that life is coming back. And we'll see that in the video on December 4th, especially. And now we should go into St. Nicholas. So why is St. Nicholas not part of the Christmas celebration in this case?
Let's see. I don't. You mean in the older ones? Or in the
yes,
non-West Germanic versions?
No, he would obviously not be part of the heathen celebrations, but Saint Nicholas is a legitimate saint. So we're talking about Christian Christmas, and in Christian Christmas, the focus is actually on baby Jesus. So what do you think why Saint Nicholas is not part of actual Christmas?
I mean, in a kind of sense, he is still, because it's still around Santa Claus, who is Saint Nicholas, or at least a version of him, if you will. But I can see why you'd say it's more about the baby Jesus side of things, because it's about obviously his birth and his story. As to why maybe Saint Nicholas doesn't take center stage, well, I guess it's yet again because it's what the whole religion is based around is Jesus Christ and God, right? So Saint Nicholas is just one of the many catalysts of that just yet again ties into the whole religion.
Yes, it's he is a side character, and one reason for that is that he's not biblical, because the actual Saint Nicholas, the bishop, lived a few centuries after the whole biblical era, so after Christ was born and even after Christ had died. So he is a legitimate saint at a time where the church is becoming a big part of the Roman Empire, where it's being turned into a state religion. And he's not part of Christmas proper simply because he's too late.
Right.
So we will talk about St. Nicholas on St. Nicholas Day, and we have a rather long video about him. But the whole gift-giving thing is something that still connects him to Christmas proper, because you have gifts for baby Jesus, and we will talk about the three kings. But it's actually not that everyone is getting gifts on that date. So it's only for the baby at that point, and that everyone's getting gifts, and that even adults are giving each other gifts. Yeah. That is something that relates to St. Nicholas.
Makes sense. Okay.
So he is part, but at the same time isn't part. And we will talk about this later. We have 3 videos where we talk about St. Nicholas and others that are not the saint, but are kind of Santa. And then we will talk about the American Santa too. So yeah, prepare for that.
Hey, it's good. It's good to learn. I'm all for it.
Right. So a lot of St. Nicholas actually. I'll show you a nice picture concerning the gift giving.
Oh.
So there will be a story about this, how the gift giving started. and Saint Nicholas is known for throwing the presents through the window. That was before everyone had these big fireplaces.
I see. That makes sense. How else would he get in the house, right? Unless they let him in.
Yes, and I mean, what are you doing now? I mean, when you don't have a big fireplace, how is he supposed to come in?
Well, the belief is just magic, right? That's just the easy giveaway answer is just, oh, it's magic.
Christmas magic. We'll talk about that. But before we do that, so before the next video starts, there is one last thing, and that is the New Year. And this is St. Basil's Cathedral in Moscow. So in the former communist countries that are now not communist anymore and haven't been for about 30 years, in these countries, Christmas was not big because communism itself is kind of a religion, and it doesn't like rival religions. So what communism usually does is that it destroys all other faiths, or at least bans other faiths. So they did their best to get rid of the Christian faith, but also of Islam, for example. So Islam was very suppressed in the communist countries back then. And with Christianity, they actually hunted down priests, and they were trying to stop people from going to secret masses and so on. So communism was totally suppressing other faiths. And this is why they had an end of year celebration that was the New Year. And that was much bigger than Christmas because it was not a religious holiday, it was simply a calendar holiday.
So that everybody could celebrate it easily. I see.
Yes, because you need to allow people to celebrate. That is the thing with Saturnalia. People get depressed when it's really dark and cold all the time.
Sure can. Seasonal depression, it's a true thing.
Right. And they still have this darkness versus light thing going on. They have the fireworks on New Year's Eve, like other countries have them too. But they were trying to switch this out, and it didn't really work. So in some of these communist countries, and we will see this in the 5th video, they came up with alternative names for Christmas angels because they couldn't suppress Christmas enough.
Huh.
We'll see, but this is the end of the 2nd video. What is Christmas? Well, Christmas is a Christian holiday. It's the birth of Jesus Christ, but it has many influences from antiquity, as we have seen with the Roman Saturnalia, and as we have seen with winter solstice celebrations in the Germanic areas, and it's also a little bit of St. Nicholas and his gift giving.
How about that? Day 2 down! Thank you so much to my YouTube members and Patreon members for all the love and support. It's thanks to people like you that we can keep growing.